Welcome back to the channel. Now in this video today, we're going to be looking at how to replace the sky in an image and also make some basic adjustments to the color and brightness. So starting off in Photoshop, this is where you're at a bit of a slight advantage because Photoshop has some artificial intelligence built into it, which we can take advantage of. So making sure we've got our layer selected, come up to Image, and then Sky Replacement. Okay. Now, what we're aiming for in this particular image is a nice, like evening, almost like sunset kind of feel. So on our drop-down box here, now you can see it's thinking at the moment. It's trying to look for where it thinks the sky is. Now we can come down here and let's minimize that. And let's look for some sunset images. And if we click on each one, it just gives us a quick preview of what we're looking for. But none of these really feel right. They're a bit over dramatic. So what we can do is we can add and upload our own. Coming down to the plus button on here, here's one that I found earlier called what I've called Evening Sky. Okay, so we can open that and then it'll appear on our list, and there's one that I added already. Now it looks fairly nice at the moment. We can always make some slight subtle changes if we need to, particularly with the brightness or the color temperature. Now what we mean by the temperature is if it says like a sunset time or more in the daytime, it'll tend to be warmer, so more towards the yellows. But if it's like after sunset or first thing in the morning before the sun's come up, it'll be much cooler, so more towards the blue. And we see by changing it how it just gives a slightly different feel and look to the image. So in this case, let's go for just around sunset, just slightly cooler around there. Whenever you're making changes with sliders in Photoshop, always go for small, subtle adjustments. It's really easy to go, yep, at either end, but it suddenly looks really, really unnatural. So let's keep that right in the middle where we want it, and let's bring our temperature just back to about there-ish, and press OK. That's a nice, easy way to do it in Photoshop. Now in Photopea, it's slightly harder to do because we don't have the AI tool built in. So going back to the previous video, we need to manually select our sky, remove it, and then add something else in. Now, again, there's no single correct way of doing this. It'll be a little bit of trial and error to work out which selection tool works best. Now, I can already foresee that for the most part, it'll work okay, but I think this part of the image with the skyscraper or the bridge structure coming up will be a little bit tricky. But let's have a look. Starting with our magic wand tool. Yeah, we can see it looks for areas of like a similar shade or a similar color, but it's not getting the whole sky and is occasionally picking out bits of the bridge which we don't want. We can try the quick selection tool. Again, that's a bit better, but it's cutting out our bridge here. Now this might work, and we can always fill in these gaps in the corner later, but for me, I think doing it like the slightly longer way, spending a bit longer using the magnetic lasso or the manual lasso to manage, like follow the edges really, really carefully will probably be best. Or we can always use combinations. We could do the quick selection. Let's try again. Not very quick selection, the magic wand, and just get rid of it in chunks, making sure to not delete our bridge. For big sections like this now, we can use our rectangle tool like this. Just get rid of any big sections. Remember, if you make a mistake and go a bit too far, we can come over to our history and just go back a step. Okay. But I think we could use this to get rid of the bulk of it, like this. And then once we've got rid of most of it, we can then use our magnetic lasso to get rid of the finer details. Okay. So here's one I made earlier for you. Now, similarly, again, going to come to File, Open, import our sky. Now I want to select the whole thing, so I'm going to Control A or select all, Control C to copy, come back to our second image on here, and I'll Control V to paste. Now you can see on the right it's added it as a second layer. Now at the moment it's way too big, so we just need to come out and resize it. In fact, let's zoom out a bit. And let's just look for whereabouts it fits neatly. just very crudely. Let's zoom back in again. I think something maybe a bit like this. Now, it's really hard to see at the moment how it's going to look overall. So there's a couple of things we can do. Firstly, we can adjust the opacity. Think of this as a bit being like the transparency. So let's just bring that down a smidgen, just so we can get it lined up with where we want to, so the clouds aren't in the way. But also we need to swap our layers around. So we're going to put the sky on the back. So let's drag that to the bottom. We can now bring our opacity back. And from there, we can just tweak our skyline just so it looks a bit more natural. And obviously we can now come back to our background layer. And just using some of our tools here, just get rid of those little details that we missed off previously. Always making sure that you've got the right tool selected. Okay. In fact, let's try it on the correct one. Copy, paste, let's resize it. Let's bring it down a bit more. Let's put that to the back. There we go. So it starts looking about right there-ish. Okay, maybe change the size a bit more. Now, last things to do, we can still see the colours don't look quite natural. Got a really, really like nice calm skyline, but a really overly vivid foreground. So we want to adjust that one. So make sure we got the correct layer selected. So we want our background. We come to Image, Adjustments, and we're going to look at our brightness and contrast. And just bring our brightness down a little bit to like a nice early evening feel. And we also want to bring like, we call that vividness, like that color, we call that the saturation. So we come down to hue and saturation. Let's just bring our saturation down just a little bit to something a bit like, maybe a bit like there. That looks much more natural now. Okay. The key thing whenever you're making changes in Photoshop or Photopea is go for subtle, small changes all the time. It's really easy to extend your sliders to each extreme, but it will very quickly look really unnatural. Okay, so let's go for something a bit like there. Okay. And that's how we change the sky in Photoshop and Photopea.